Do you ever catch yourself staring out a window or looking down at your phone and suddenly realize you have no idea where the last hour just went? Or the last year? You wake up, you work, you scroll, you sleep, you repeat. It's like being on an endless treadmill where the scenery never changes, and worse, you don't even remember stepping onto the machine. We call this routine, but the ancients had a different word for it: sleepwalking. Over 2 millennia ago, a man stood before a jury in Athens, facing the death penalty. He wasn't defending his bank account, his status, or his reputation. He was defending a way of existing. Socrates looked at his accusers and delivered a warning that should still haunt us today. The unexamined life is not worth living. He didn't mean you had to be an academic. He meant that if you don't stop to examine your life, you aren't really living it. You're just blindly acting out a script someone else wrote for you. So, who wrote the script? Well, let's talk about a story told by Socrates' most famous student, Plato. Imagine a group of people who have lived their entire lives chained inside a dark, damp cave. They are bound so they can only face a blank wall. Behind them burns a fire, and between the fire and the prisoners, puppeteers hold up various objects. The prisoners only see the shadows cast on the wall. Because that's all they've ever known, they believe those shadows are the absolute truth. They argue about the shadows, they build entire belief systems around the shadows. They give out awards and assign social status to whoever can predict the shadows best. It sounds absurd, right? But how different is that cave from the way we live right now? Look around. We are constantly staring at glowing rectangles, watching shadows dance across our feeds. We absorb opinions we never questioned. We chase desires we never actually chose. We buy things because an algorithm calculated that we'd be susceptible. And we get outraged because a headline was engineered to make us angry. We think we are free, independent thinkers, but most of the time, we are just echoing the puppeteers. This is the modern manifestation of the unexamined life. We think we know who we are, we think we know what we want, but psychology actually has a name for this profound lack of self-awareness. It's related to the Dunning-Kruger effect. Usually, we hear this term applied to intelligence, the idea that incompetent people lack the very skills needed to realize how incompetent they are. But it applies to self-knowledge too. People who don't examine themselves are incredibly confident that they know exactly what they are doing. They are absolutely certain that their anger is justified, that their sadness is someone else's fault, and that their desires are purely their own. They are supremely confident precisely because they have never looked beneath the surface. Socrates famously got killed because he walked around Athens poking holes in this exact kind of arrogant certainty. He proved to the experts that they actually knew nothing. When we refuse to look inward, we don't remain neutral. That's the trap. If you don't actively govern your inner world, something else will step in to do the job for you. Society, media, inherited trauma, passing fads. The unconscious habits you built when you were 7 years old to protect yourself. Think about it. How many of your daily actions are truly conscious choices, and how many are just reflexes? You feel stressed, so you eat something sweet. You feel awkward, so you pull out your phone. Someone criticizes you, and you immediately lash out in defense. These aren't choices. They are automated programs running in the background of your psyche. The danger of the cave isn't just ignorance, it's slavery. When we don't stop to ask why, we become absolute slaves to our impulses. We become reactionary creatures, pushed and pulled by whatever external circumstance comes our way. The weather is bad, so our day is ruined. Someone is rude to us in traffic, so we carry a dark cloud into our workplace. We are at the mercy of the wind because we haven't bothered to take hold of the steering wheel. We are merely passengers in our own bodies. To step out of the cave means turning around. It means taking your eyes off the shadows on the wall, the distractions, the superficial dramas, the endless noise, and looking at the fire, looking at the source, looking at yourself. And let me tell you, that light hurts the eyes at first. It's uncomfortable to realize how much of your life has been running on autopilot. It is deeply humbling to recognize that the enemy holding you back isn't society, or your boss, or the economy, but your own lack of awareness. The philosophers of antiquity understood that this blindness was the root of human suffering. They didn't see philosophy as a dusty university subject to be debated in classrooms. They saw it as medicine for the soul. They recognized that an unexamined life is a fragile one, vulnerable to every storm. If your entire identity is built on shadows, on your job title, your social status, your bank balance, what happens when those things fade? They always do. The cave eventually collapses. Only by questioning the nature of our reality, by dragging our assumptions into the harsh light of day, can we build a foundation that actually lasts. So how do we break the chains? How do we walk out of the cave and stop living a life of default settings? It's not enough to just nod along to a profound quote from Socrates and then go back to scrolling. Reading about fitness won't build muscle, and simply agreeing that self-awareness is good won't wake you up. You have to actually do the work. This is where philosophy shifts from being a theoretical abstraction into what it was always meant to be, a practical, daily discipline. At New Acropolis, we call this practical philosophy. It's not about memorizing what a bunch of old guys in togas said. It's about taking their tools and applying them to the messy, complicated reality of your Tuesday afternoon. Waking up requires a radical shift in how you relate to your own mind. Right now, most of us identify completely with our thoughts and emotions. If anger arises, we say, "I am angry." If sadness hits, we say, "I am sad." But the examined life begins with a separation. You have to become the observer of your own internal landscape. You have to realize that you are not the anger. You are the sky in which the cloud of anger is passing. And once you can observe the cloud, you can question it. We need a tool to cut through the fog of our immediate reactions. And the most powerful tool for this isn't complicated. In fact, it's something every 4-year-old knows how to do instinctively, though we somehow unlearn it as adults. It's the simple act of asking, why? But asking why just once usually isn't enough. The first answer you give yourself is almost always a lie. It's a superficial justification designed to protect your ego. To get to the truth, to really examine the machinery of your life, you have to dig deeper. I want to introduce you to a practice often called the 5 whys. It actually originated in the manufacturing world to find the root cause of mechanical failures on assembly lines. But it translates perfectly as one of the most profound psychological and philosophical exercises you can perform on yourself. Here's how you do it. The next time you feel a strong automatic emotion, let's say a flash of intense irritation or anger, don't suppress it, but don't act on it either. Pause, step back, and ask yourself why 5 times. Let's walk through a real-world example so you can see how this operates. Imagine you're driving home from work. You're in a decent mood. Suddenly, a car swerves into your lane, cutting you off so closely that you have to slam on the brakes. Your heart spikes. Your hands grip the steering wheel. You lay on the horn, and suddenly, you are absolutely furious. Your peace of mind is entirely shattered. Now, let's apply the first why. You ask yourself, why am I so angry? The immediate answer is obvious. Because that idiot just cut me off and almost caused a crash. Most people stop there. They take that surface-level answer, validate their anger, and spend the next 3 hours complaining to their family about the terrible drivers in this city. They let a stranger hijack their nervous system. But you are trying to examine your life. So, you push further. You ask the second why. Why does it make me so angry that he cut me off? Now you have to think a little. You reply, well, because it was reckless. But more than that, he didn't even use a turn signal or wave an apology. He just forced his way in. He disrespected me. Interesting. Notice what happened. We are moving away from the physical event, metal moving on asphalt, and into the psychological meaning you attach to it. The car didn't just cross a white line. The driver committed a personal act of disrespect against you. But let's not stop. Ask the third, why? Why does his lack of respect bother me so much? Why do I care if a complete stranger in a silver sedan respects me? This is where it gets uncomfortable. This is where the light of the fire starts to sting your eyes. If you are deeply honest, the answer might look something like, because when people disrespect me, it makes me feel small. It makes me feel invisible, like I don't matter. We are getting close to the root now. Keep going. The fourth, why? Why do I feel small or invisible when a stranger ignores me? You look inward, past the ego's defenses. Because I rely on other people's validation to feel important. I need the external world to treat me well in order to feel good about myself. And finally, the fifth, why? Why do I need the external world to validate me? The ultimate painful truth emerges because I am insecure, because I haven't cultivated my own internal sense of worth, because I am empty inside, and I am quietly demanding that the world fill me up. Do you see the massive shift that just occurred? In 5 steps, we traveled from, that guy is a terrible driver, to I have an unresolved wound regarding my own self-worth. The driver cutting you off was not the actual cause of your suffering. The driver was just the trigger. He was the finger pulling the trigger, but the gun was already fully loaded with your own insecurities. If you had stopped at the first why, you would have remained a victim of circumstance, angry at a chaotic world you cannot control. But by drilling down to the fifth, why, you have reclaimed your power. You can't control how other people drive. You can't control traffic, but you can work on your own internal sense of worth. You have localized the problem within the only domain you have absolute authority over, your own soul. This is the essence of what the ancient Stoics taught. Philosophers like Epictetus, who was born a slave and yet became one of the freest men in antiquity, understood this intimately. He wrote, "It is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them. The event, the car merging, is neutral. The judgment, he disrespected me, and that means I am small, is where the suffering is entirely manufactured. When you refuse to examine your life, you live under the tragic delusion that the world is doing things to you. You believe that your boss makes you stressed, your partner makes you unhappy, the news makes you anxious. You surrender your sovereignty to everything outside of you. You become a puppet, and anyone can pull your strings just by pushing the right buttons. But the moment you start asking why, you take the scissors and you cut the strings. You realize that your reactions are yours, your emotions are yours, your beliefs are yours, and if they are yours, they can be changed. You are the architect of your inner world. This practice isn't easy. I want to be very clear about that. It is exhausting. It requires an unyielding commitment to radical honesty. You will uncover things about yourself that are ugly, petty, and highly irrational. You will find that you hold lifelong grudges for no good reason. You will discover that many of the things you chase, money, status, physical appearance, are just desperate, exhausting attempts to soothe wounds you never bothered to heal. It is much easier to stay asleep. It is much more comfortable to sit in the cave, watch the shadows, and blame the puppeteers for your misery. Waking up requires courage. It requires the bravery to stand naked before your own conscience and take absolute responsibility for who you are. But what is the alternative? To reach the end of your days, look back, and realize you never actually showed up for your own existence? Self-knowledge is the only real path to true freedom. Freedom isn't the ability to buy whatever you want, say whatever pops into your head, or travel wherever you please. Those are external liberties, and depending on the state of the world, they can be taken away in an instant. True freedom, the kind of freedom Socrates possessed even as he stood trial, the kind of freedom Epictetus possessed even in chains, is internal. It is the unbreakable tranquility that comes from knowing exactly who you are, what you value, and refusing to let the chaos of the world dictate the weather in your mind. Every single time you pause instead of reacting, you strike a blow for your own freedom. Every time you ask, why, instead of defaulting to your usual habits, you lay a heavy brick in the foundation of an examined life. You begin to replace automatic reflexes with conscious, deliberate choices. You stop being a biological machine responding to stimuli, and you start becoming a human being, a philosopher, a lover of wisdom who applies that wisdom to the incredibly difficult art of living. You can start today, right now. When this video ends, don't just immediately click on the next piece of dopamine-inducing content to numb out. Sit in silence for just 2 minutes. Look at whatever emotion is sitting in your chest right now, boredom, anxiety, inspiration, fatigue, and ask it why it is there. Follow the thread all the way down into the labyrinth of yourself. Be the master of that maze, not its victim. The examined life is waiting for you, but you have to choose to step into it. Living the examined life is undeniably harder. It demands constant vigilance, brutal honesty, and the willingness to let go of your most comfortable illusions. But it is the only life that is truly yours. When you finally know yourself, you hold the pen. You stop acting out the tragedies written by your past, or the comedies dictated by society, and you finally begin to author your own destiny. If you are tired of the autopilot, if you want to stop sleepwalking and start living with deep, unwavering purpose, then it's time to take the next step. You don't have to walk out of the cave alone. At New Acropolis, we are a school of practical philosophy, a global community of individuals dedicated to discovering timeless wisdom and applying it to everyday life. Subscribe to this channel for more practical philosophy, or visit our website to find a branch near you and learn more about our upcoming classes.